Okay, everything that we talk about here is important for everybody. It's just sometimes if there's something really specifically SLO related, then I'll point that out. But for everybody else, it's the same stuff for everybody. So I have a top 5 paper with everything on it, and you don't have to try to let anything go in your head, because you can have that for free. You can have my Outlook stuff. You can have anything you want, because I'm a retired person and I'll just send it to anybody. So if there's something that you want, just speak up. All right, so right now when there's especially anything with SLO, then I will add that. The rest of it's for everybody under the sun. Some of them are going to be included, but they're not in this little quick thingy here. But everything is legitimate, scientific medication. Okay. I have to say, I had a little brain accident a while back, and so I have some little problems sometimes saying some words backward and stuff. Deal with it. Anyway, but everything's legit. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm trying to okay. Now, it's really important to look reliability of the source, because like if you look at stuff from colleges, that's one thing. But if somebody's trying to sell you something, that's usually iffy. But everybody, my mother said, needs to eat lots and lots of brightly colored fruits and vegetables. And the reason is there's stuff in there, sounds very scientific, plant chemicals are called phytochemicals. It's just carotene and carrots and stuff like that. But it looks like they're a big fat deal for the health of everybody. And they have a lot of protective antioxidants. Now, if you have a metabolic disease, the chances are good you're making more free radicals, nasty little substances. So you probably need more of all this good stuff, but so does mom and dad and everybody else. I keep touching the wrong thing. Okay, and it turns out in Plantville, white is also a color, you know? So garlic and onions and all kinds of things, and sulforaphane and broccoli, all of those things are especially useful in decreasing risk of cancer of the whatever and all kinds of other stuff you don't want. If you have diabetes, by the way, big interesting that the French fry is the most commonly eaten veggie. You can grab something that's already made and sitting there, canned, frozen, whatever. And it looks like all of those brightly colored antioxidants are not destroyed by heat. So that's useful to know. Like if you say, no, you must eat them fresh. I hate them fresh. Cook it, it's fine. So you can use canned veggies, but there's usually a bunch of salt in there. So if you're using those, you can rinse that off if you want to. But it's not an issue with the fruits and frozen veggies that are packed in some sort of sauce, but it mostly affects the calories. So if you're trying to watch calories for some reason, that's a place where you can cut it. Fruits without added sugar have more nutrients per calorie, but the healthy goodies in there are the same no matter what. So there's some. Color is a big deal. So choosing iceberg lettuce won't have much of a dark green lutein that's found in romaine and spinach. So I also have a paper that you can have, and I can send it out to people if anybody wants it. I'll give it to the boss lady here. Anyway, they also is a big deal for vitamin K, and it looks like it's being a critical issue in a whole bunch of health problems that people have, and hasn't really been in our radar very much. But the dark leafy greens are the guys. So it's found to be low in a lot of people's diets. And they used to think that intestinal bacteria provide significant vitamin K. And then we took a whole big bunch of chronic antibiotics, killed them all dead. So you probably need to have some that's ready to rock and roll. A fairly recent study found that elderly need more than the current RDA. RDAs are based on meeting what they thought in 1956 was the 98th percentile of people. Wrong. And certainly anybody who had a chronic disease is not a member of that group. So we have to look a little closer. So it's not just the older folks that we know now that those levels are not optimal. And a lot of multivites don't even have it in there. So you want to look at what you're taking there. We used to think it was potentially toxic because it was fat soluble. I memorized that in college. Fat soluble vitamins are stay in your body and build up and kill you, but it looks like it's a very safe guy. So make sure you have some of that coming in there. It's got a bunch of functions that we hadn't even known about before. All right. The only cautionary note is if you're taking that particular drug, Coumadin or warfarin, because it interacts with that. But if you're not on that drug, which would be like almost everybody, it actually makes it safer to use that drug because of the consistency of the vitamin K. So other than that, if you're taking any other kind of anticoagulant drug, it doesn't work that way, so it's not a problem. Some other things, it looks like vitamin K makes medications look or work safer. So taking it in makes it not like that volatility issue. Okay, other anticoagulant drugs do not work by screwing up with vitamin K, so it doesn't matter. If you're on something else, it's not an issue. So in the meantime, for anybody who's not on the drug Coumadin, and certainly that's almost everybody, my official recommendation is eat all the brightly colored fruits and vegetables you can get your hands on. And a good little motto for that is that little eat the rainbow thing. I thought that was kind of cute. I didn't make that up, I just stole it. So now regarding food, intake of brightly colored fruits and veggies for SLOS, looks like every single metabolic problem that they have in common is they produce more free radicals, which are little injurious guys. And they're substances that are produced by all metabolic activity. But if something isn't running the way it's expected, then you're going to have a whole lot more of them. So the free radicals are like bandits that steal things. They come up to your electrons come up to your cell membrane and pluck it off of there. And then that guy goes, hey, somebody took my electron, and he takes yours. Okay. So it's really important to have some goodies in there that prevent that serious damage to cell membranes. So if you have a hole in your cell membrane, that's having a hole in your balloon. Do you know what I mean? It really screws up the cell. So I can't see this and you at the same time, which is weird because I usually just blab at people. Okay. Anyway, so it looks like though free radicals being excessive is going to screw up all kinds of stuff like kidney failure, blindness, impaired circulation, and things like the premature aging of people with Down syndrome, a lot of that. So for anybody who has any kind of odd metabolism issue, generous antioxidants is really good. So I think I just said that. Besides vitamin C and vitamin E, the mineral selenium is part of glutathione peroxidase, and that's a big, powerful antioxidant. And also, all of those brightly colored plant chemicals, all of them are really important for getting rid of free radicals. But, okay, in SLOS, it's the same as everybody. So it's important to have a generous intake. And if you have any kind of metabolic goofiness, it's a problem. They don't make you have diabetes if you don't have diabetes or Down syndrome. They just don't make it hurt you less. It doesn't make it go away or anything like that. Okay. Yeah, the term I have used for this kind of thing is goofy metabolism, because you know what? They're all the same. It's like if something's not working, you produce more free radicals. And it's one reason why you end up making more than you otherwise would. And that's because your requirement is going to be higher for antioxidant protection for anything, heart disease, cancer, whatever. And you'd be surprised how many people have goofy metabolism. For example, I have goofy metabolism. It's a technical term we use at the hospital. I have a genetic condition where I don't make a couple of things that you're supposed to make, and figured that out when I was about 40. And nobody in my family ever lived to be more than 40 something. I'm 73. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but I have to take some things and eat some things and try to do something to correct that. And you can bet I also make sure of having plenty of potent, colorful antioxidants like strawberry shortcake, carrot cake, blueberry pie, etc. Okay. But any kind of autoimmune condition is going to cause that kind of goofy metabolism. You're producing more free radicals. They're injurious. They're plucking electrons right off your cell membranes. So Parkinson's, Crohn's, inflammatory diseases are all that way. So in all of those conditions, there's going to be a lot more smoke coming out the tailpipe, right? So generous antioxidants are really important. And when you think about it, if you have to make a whole bunch of antioxidants available to your kid with SLOS, they're saving your life too. Okay, so it's something your whole family can benefit from. Another one, oh yeah, an example of goofy metabolism. Some people get a lot of their calories from Jack Daniels. Okay, and we know that alcohol is a cause of a lot of problems, but there's a big fat secondary problem is because of the free radicals. So unsurprisingly, they actually, well, they need to take care of stuff like that. And SLOS, the primary area, you know what that is here. And it's all working to address preformed cholesterol and to avoid injury from the buildup of injurious stuff. Now, there is research showing that SLOS is associated with increased oxidative stress. That's for sure. I didn't make that up. But at the time, there's not an official recommendation that I've seen that says you need to attend to this. But there's data from a long time looking like it's a big deal. It's just not the official anything yet. So what are you going to do for free radical protection? Yeah, lots of brightly colored fruits and vegetables of your choice. Okay. In the meantime, I think we should consider getting generous intake of antioxidants that are recommended for the general public. So when you look at like the RDA for something, that meets the needs of 98% of the healthy population. Well, no one in my practice was ever a member of the healthy population. I had all kinds of kids from all kinds of places. And if when I looked up stuff for them, it was like, yeah, well, antioxidants. So if it were my child, I would certainly do what I could to safely and cheaply add things. Remember that all of the recommendations for RDAs and all of those are for the members of the nationally healthy population. I have a little trouble speaking because I had something like a little mini stroke a while back, and I couldn't talk for 2 months. Now, can you imagine that girl couldn't talk? My poor husband, he says, no. Anyway, but they're all made based on the needs of the healthy population. But I do have a little trouble being as fluent as I might have been otherwise. Also, I'm excited to be here. I haven't done any workshops for 2 years because everybody's been like in their house trying not to get COVID. So, but let's see. So regarding the healthy population, as I said, nobody in my practice was ever a member of that. And every little person, and some of them are grown up now, have to think about the best intake of different needs for whatever they have. So let's see. Well, you had a whole talk about gastrostomy tubes. I watched those things this morning. And but the commercial products used are not ever providing complete nutrition. So, and usually they have like a required volume that you have to take in order to get the RDA. What's the RDA? It meets the needs, theoretically, of 98% of the healthy population. It's not addressing your kid, okay? So many of our patients do have very low calorie requirements because they don't move. Depends what kind of kid they are, you know, but I've got all kinds of kids and I've got plenty of them that don't move. And so that's not going to meet their needs. So if I choose a product that has all those goodies in 2,000 calories, but they only need half of that, they're only going to get half the vitamins and minerals of a healthy child. And they may actually need more of some things. So I could also follow the directions and feed her the standard amount of calories for age. So she gets the RDA for all the nutrients. And that's certainly going to plump her up a bit there if she doesn't move. So it can interfere with her ability to move around, might also make her need to outgrow her adaptive equipment. Something else to think about is regarding the fruits and vegetable phytochemicals. None of those formulas have those. Huh?
Yes, that was my question. My son is 100% fed. How do I get him these?
You get grandma on board. Seriously. I mean, there isn't any product. There are some things that are out there like a mixed fruit and vegetable additive or something, but finding one that fits in your tube feeding and all of that. I'm going to look at a question. There's really none of those brightly colored fruits and veggies are in any of those. And they're also meeting the needs of the healthy population. And nobody in my population is ever a member of that group. So without going into the second one, you can give some low sodium versions or maybe low calorie versions, but the ready to go fruit and vegetables beverages are sometimes available, but just realize it's not in those commercially made products. Some juices can be added that are quite low in calories, but some are really high. Like cranberry juice is really low and some are artificially sweetened. But things like cranberry juice, regular or grape juice, 20 calories per ounce, that's the same as whole milk. So for a little one who doesn't move very much, that's kind of a lot. So now it could easily be sweetened if it's sweetened with natural fruit juice, could be white grape juice at 20 calories per ounce. So whether the calories is an issue for your child in either direction will depend on that. Veggie juices, generally speaking, are lower in calories than fruits, and there are also some extracts available out there, but they're kind of pricey. You can do something like adding low sodium tomato juice or V8 juice. And there are also some dried and stuff like that. I have a paper called Antioxidant Paper for Special Needs Kids, and I'm not going to go through all of that now, but if anybody wants that stuff, I'll make sure that Gretchen has everything that I'm talking about. So most conveniently of all, in answer to your question, get grandma or grandpa or somebody involved in making some stuff. You know, pureed fruits and vegetable combos, you can puree them up, freeze them in an ice cube tray, and then just pop them out, throw them in a day. And lots of people would love to help you if they just knew what would help. And that's something that people can do. And I have a lot of my little kids' parents are quite good at that. And they share that information with everybody. So anyway, a few substances to keep an eye on for researchers to consider looking at children with SLO in particular is the potent antioxidants above, and also these guys, carnitine, alpha lipoic acid, CoQ10, and specific forms of vitamin E. These things look like they might be really beneficial in any kind of metabolic disease where you're producing more free radicals. And someone told me that they were doing some of this from my last visit here, so that was kind of cool. So I can't really find any research looking at supplementing those things, especially with SLOS, but my gosh, it's there for every other condition that I've ever looked anything for, okay? So what we usually do is like a trial administration of all three. We call that a mitochondrial cocktail because it's saying we just put a bunch of extra stuff in there. It puts out fires, helps things slide along, and you can always remove something or something, but you don't want to miss something because, well, I put some carrot juice in there and it didn't do anything. Well, there's a lot of guys, a lot of different antioxidants. So it's likely that if everybody is involved, all of those different fruits and vegetables, that you're more likely to catch something that's helpful. And of course, it always requires a physician's order to give carrot juice to anybody, right? Okay, but look at this. I found the same kind of stuff with workshops I've done for diabetes, fat metabolism, Prader-Willi Down syndrome, muscle tone kids, PKU, maple syrup urine disease. I've only had 3 kids ever with SLOS, but I have like 40 with diabetes, type 1, you know, so, but it's the same. It's totally the same. So the muscle tone issues and other things that might apply in SLOS, I'm mentioning them here because people might want to do some studies on that, but these are not the official recommendations of anybody. This is like some lady from Fargo thinks this, okay? Some of the interventions are very specific, related to low muscle tone and exercise tolerance, and doing a trial on carnitine has resulted in some great improvement in many children and no effect at all in others. Now, do you know what carnitine is? It's just a little simple molecule that lets fat get into the mitochondria so you can burn stuff for fuel. And a lot of meds screw up carnitine, and a lot of genetic conditions screw up carnitine. Now, I happen to have that myself. And But if they have low muscle tone, poor production of carnitine you can usually see it if you have the certain meds like valproic acid, depakine, or been on a special diet for seizure control. But in other words, you don't need to know what their problem is to do a trial on carnitine, because if it is a player, there is not fixing it, it's causing some cardiomyopathy and some other bad things you don't want. Now, I have to show you this little girl. This little girl she's 21 there. She was a Down syndrome child that I got at age 3. She couldn't move, she's lying on the floor, she couldn't do anything. Now, kids with Down syndrome are floppy and low tone, and we know that. But we did a trial, and this is her life now. It's like a whole lot better. So if you have a problem with that, a trial is a really good idea. It'll either help or it won't. Okay, so a blood test is not useful because it might not be inside your cells. It might be floating around or not. But it can appear to be normal in the blood, but it's really low in some tissues. So we always do a trial. And a trial is always something ordered by a physician and not by me. I'm the wrong kind of doc for that. But I do have a whole paper just on carnitine. If anybody's interested, I will send my stuff to anybody. Okay. Now, there's also been some interest in the use of something called CoQ10, which is also an antioxidant. Ubiquinone means it's ubiquitous, which means it's like everywhere, assuming that you have some. And it's very benign, but it can be kind of pricey, but it's becoming more common and less expensive all the time. But that might be another player on people's teams here. CoQ10 is being studied in a lot of stuff: diabetes, Parkinsonism, and some other thing. Any conditions that result in excessive free radicals might be helped by this. Interested in SLOS is being studied to look at people using simvastatin, that might help some of the side effects from that. And let's see. Yeah, we don't care. Okay. I found an older report looking at HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors and CoQ10 levels, specifically in kids with SLOS. They found that CoQ10 levels and vitamin E levels, which were both big, fat, important antioxidants, that they were lower in children with SLOS. And they noted that more new research is needed. Have you heard that before? Yes, it's always true. But here's one that came out not real recent, but they looked at some levels of coenzyme Q10, specifically in kids with SLOS, and they found that it was useful. Here's a newer look at antioxidant supplementation. In this case, they use vitamin E, and that's a newer one. But it looks like it resulted in significant elevation of plasma vitamin E concentrations. And remember, that's a big antioxidant. And if you have a metabolic disease, you produce more free radicals. So there's some data out there. So this was cool. They looked at a whole bunch of behavioral things, and they found that it was reduced aggression, self-injury, irritability, hyperactivity, attention deficit, repetitive behavior, sleep disturbances, and skin photosynthesis in 3 out of 6 patients, with notable variation in people. But what that means is it might be your kid that benefits. And none of that is scary or anything either. It's like it either helps or it won't. Let's see. Clinical responsive therapy was associated with some levels. This is in your handout, so you don't have to write that down. But supplementing vitamin E should be considered and might be beneficial. Do any of you guys do that? Supplement vitamin E? Yeah, some people are already doing that. Yeah. So back to everybody, use whole grains whenever possible. Right. But the germ of the plant is where all the goodies are. The rest is just like starch, So those are the parts that would have had magnesium, chromium, and vitamin E and other stuff. And if you don't like whole grain, what you gonna do? Well, you can grind it up, put it in stuff, can't you? You don't have to eat whole grain bread if you hate it. Magnesium, though, is especially important that's in the part of the grain that is not in the starchy part. And it's a big deal in over 300 pathways. Magnesium is a big fat thing, and it's not in a lot of your multivites. because it would be too big. So here's a study from Atlanta, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, that the majority of Americans have a diet too low in magnesium. Most people in the country take less than 2/3 of the recommended amount. So that means it's going to contribute to things like weight problems because you can't process the calories like you normally would, diabetes, heart disease, and a lot of other troubles. Now, enriched grain products have only a few nutrients added back, usually B1, B2, B3, and iron. Out of all the nutrients that they took out in the germ, they add back those. So what's enriched? That sounds good. But instead, you want to think of the enriched word as meaning not as nutritious as whole grain. And I tell people to read it as unriched. But you don't have to eat whole grain bread. You just need to know that things like nuts and seeds and the germ of plants is where all the goodies are. And you can find out, like you can put some peanut butter on your, okay, that's a baby plant, isn't it? And let's see, yeah, there's one of those. Okay, nuts and seeds and peanuts and lentils and dried beans and peas are all like the germ of grain, full of all of the baby plant stuff. So I'm going to skip along because this is in the handout. And they found in a Harvard study that eating an ounce of nuts or peanuts 4 times a week was related to about a 25% likelihood of developing diabetes. Whoa, that's like just a few times a week makes that much difference. It does because our diet is so low in that if we use enriched grain, because they don't add that back. So especially if you're fighting diabetes or trying not to get it, that's an issue. Now, all of the fats have about 9 calories in the, per gram, but the kind that mostly in the nuts and peanuts are mostly monounsaturated fats, so they're not like trying to kill you in the same way. And they're not empty calories, as we just discussed. So they do have calories, but so I think of those fats as happy fats because they're potentially dangerous to your butt, but not to your heart. They're also really dried beans and peas, and these are low in fat and high in fiber, so they're really a terrific food. Eating baby plants assures adequacy of magnesium, chromium, and other stuff. And particularly if there's diabetes in your family, this is something to be looking at. Okay, some ethnic groups look like they're at higher risk of this too. So Native Americans and African Americans seem to have much higher risk of getting diabetes, and making sure that those things are present is a good idea. So let's see, chromium's another one, blah, blah, blah. Now, and realize most vitamin mineral supplements only have 10 to 25% of the recommended amount. So we talked about that before. It's not in there, it would be huge. It's a macro mineral. So let's see, same for calcium. So supplements might be helpful, but they're never designed to be doing it by itself. It's got to be a team effort. If it just says it's a vitamin with minerals, it still won't probably have magnesium or calcium or anything in there. So eating those baby plants is a way to go. I'm going to skip ahead here. Also, if you're taking water pills, then you pee it out. That's a technical term we use. And if you're taking diabetes meds and stuff, they can actually make you lose magnesium. So I do have a magnesium handout if anybody wants it, with all of the details that nobody wants. Anyway, important other fat is omega-3 fat. Now you guys know what that is, right? Yeah, omega-3 fats and omega-6 fats are the most of the common fats, but the omega-3 ones look like they are associated with decreased risk of cancer, heart disease, inflammatory diseases, depression, pregnancy problems, and lots of other stuff. So there really is a benefit to opting for things that have some omega-3. And we tend to eat all omega-6. Now, if you want to improve the balance of that, flax, canola, and walnuts are great plant sources of omega-3. But big time is fish oil. Fish oil is already at the rock and roll stage, big, long molecule, ready to fight inflammation. So I think of EPA as Environmental Protection Agency, because it seems to be protective against a whole bunch of health problems. DHA in particular is a really big important thing for the fat in your brain. Did you know that we are all fatheads? Yes. Okay, and the retina of the eye. So it looks like even things like Alzheimer's and some dementia might be minimized if people simply had more of the DHA in their diet. Or if you hate fish, just take an EPA supplement. Yeah. Okay, some other things: depression, macular degeneration, attention deficit, Parkinson's. Now we need more data, don't we? Don't believe that girl from Fargo. Okay, but this is my best guess at the moment. This is what I forced my husband to do. Okay, so assuring adequate intake of those fats looks like a really good idea for everybody. And it looks like all kinds of inflammatory diseases might be related to inability of some people to get from this form of fat to that one. So that those people in particular taking the ready to rock and roll DHA is a good idea. So people otherwise, 1,000 milligrams to show for most people at risk of heart disease. Who would those be? People who smoke, who have too high of cholesterol, or whatever, overweight, sedentary. If you have any of those things, it looks like getting some fish oil is a good idea. I don't sell anything, by the way. But, let's see, all kinds of stuff. Now, I'm just going to skip ahead because I don't know how much time I have. Does anybody have an idea? Am I so far? Okay. All right. Now, saturated fats are the ones you want to eat less of. And what that is they take some oil and they bubble a bunch of gas through there, and it lets go and grabs the stuff and becomes saturated. That is not your friend. Okay. So saturated fats, you're going to see the word partially hydrogenated. That means we bubbled a bunch of gas through here. Okay. So when you see hydrogenated, that's what they're talking about. So even though it might have been a vegetable oil to start with, if it's hydrogenated vegetable oil, if it's margarine or shortening, it's no longer acting like that. Okay, so some shortenings have accidentally contained trans. We talked about that. If it has more than 0.5 gram per serving, then they have to show it on the label. But usually they say partially hydrogenated, but people don't know what that means. It means not so good. So it's being removed from the food supply gradually, but the biggest source is like baked goods made with shortening. So margarines and shortenings are now made that have no trans fat. In other words, they just totally hydrogenated, but that it doesn't have those little glucose that are half done. But usually it says that on the label because it's a good thing. Now, SLOS, there's some confusion between dietary fats that might increase production of cholesterol and sources of ready-made cholesterol, because I've come across some misunderstandings that giving a cholesterol-rich feeding with SLA, they thought that you could just have them. Well, how can I describe this? I just lost my brain. A cholesterol-rich feeding, giving them something that's ready, saturated, turns out to be better. Okay, they can't do that trick. And then now you can get some cholesterol supplements and there's stuff like that out there. But those guys are available in Europe, but we haven't had them in America for a while. So instead, we tell everybody to eat lots of egg yolks because that's a really good source. But they're kind of labor intensive, and cooking them and peeling them and mashing them, those are actually a problem getting them into every little kid anyway. Now, at the time, it was a long time ago, the cholesterol production issue in SLO was very newly discovered. And the only tool in our toolbox was to give the children egg yolks orally or through a G-tube. The question of giving dietary cholesterol would cross the blood-brain barrier was not even known about. This is new. And I don't know the answer to that, but that's, yeah, we gave them that, but it's all fine here. It helps with their skin. It does all these nice things. Does it go in your brain? Don't know. We'll find out. But it was quite labor intensive. And the first little person that I had with SLO was 100 years ago. The mom and I boiled up a bunch of egg whites, and we smashed the yolks, and we put them in her G-tube and put them in her formula, and tried to get her to eat them. That little girl didn't have a G-tube, so it was a huge problem. That little girl was first in the hospital. We did all that work in the peds ICU kitchen. And later that we found out that frozen egg yolks in large quantities are available in the food service. Whoa. So that was a wonderful discovery. But there's still lots of reasons why commercially made cholesterol additives products are the way to go if the physician orders that, because it's just really difficult. And now they've questioned whether dietary cholesterol or supplemental cholesterol actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. And that's a whole different question. On the other hand, it could very likely still have lots of benefits for skin and other kinds of things, because cholesterol is in all kinds of surfaces of all the cells. And it's also nice to not be filled up with egg yolks if you need to. They still have room for other foods. But this is an important misunderstanding, and it's still out there. In some places, you can see recommendations that you give whipping cream or butter because it makes other people have cholesterol, but not these kids. So they thought it was comparable to egg yolk in the content of pre-made cholesterol, but it wasn't. And here's a good example of that. A tablespoon of cream, amount of cholesterol, 20 milligrams total, tablespoon of whole milk, 2, large egg, 213. Okay, so if you're looking for cholesterol in food, the egg yolks are still your friend. So some foods might contribute to you making cholesterol, but not in a kid with SLOS. So let's see. Yeah, because what's going to happen is you're going to try to make cholesterol right up to the 70 hydrocholesterol level, and then you quit, and that's not good. So I'm not making this up here. An erroneous equating of cholesterol produced in egg yolks and cream was on websites and stuff. So if you get older websites, it says that they use 20 to 300 milligrams per kilogram body weight. A lot of times they were not using things that we would know has how much actual cholesterol in them. Yeah. So yeah, like whipping cream and butterfat, that tells you to make cholesterol, but not if you can't. Right. You'd have to eat 100 kilo, adult would have to eat 40 egg yolks a day, and then they can't convert it. So liver is the other one they often cite. An animal brain has a lot. Do you eat a lot of animal brain at your house? Anyway, so the extra fat in the food sources also decreases their appetite. So if you're trying to lard them up with a bunch of egg yolks or whatever, they're not going to want to eat a bunch of other stuff that they should get. Okay, providing in some form is a good idea in relation to skin issues and some other stuff, but we need to know that it is not necessarily crossing the blood-brain barrier. That's fairly new. When I talked to her 4 or 5 years ago, it was like, yeah, do that. Never mind. Anyway, but it's still good for other reasons, other skin cell uses. So what else? Skip some of this stuff. Okay, some people are also benefiting from taurine supplementation and even bile acid replacement, but it's pharmacy related and outside of my turf. Now back to the everybody part. Vitamin D is made out of cholesterol. And so some people need to take more than they normally would. Probably all of us, because certainly if you have SLOS, you're not going to be making that. Even 2,000 units a day may be too little for some people, especially if you live up north or you have dark skin. Let's see. Half the world's population, it looks like they're at risk of vitamin D deficiency. And that includes hot and sunny countries, and not just Fargo, because they go inside, they're not stupid, right? So, but it looks like vitamin D deficiency is a big fat deal in a whole bunch of health problems you don't want. So assuring adequacy by taking a supplement, I don't sell anything, by the way, is a really good idea. And here's just a few thousand of those. And that's not surprising because vitamin D is actually a key steroid hormone and your body needs it to make all kinds of stuff. if you just give it enough stuff. 200 different body tissues have receptors for vitamin D hormone. And let's see, another area is vitamin D inadequacy. Looks like it's a factor in heart disease, just for folks in general. And looking at a lot of big studies, they found that significantly those diseases are less in people who just take an ordinary vitamin D source, and probably if they took more, some people would do better. Sun intolerance is a common problem in SLOS. So of course, you're not expecting that little peanut to be making all this vitamin D if she can't be out there in the sun. So it looks like production of vitamin D in the skin is not impaired in SLOS, assuming you have all this sun exposure, but it's also not overproduced or anything. So we need to assure adequacy at least once by checking the blood level and see where they are in space. A couple of maps. This is one, you see that says you are here. Actually, you're not, that's where I live. But the angle of the sun is insufficient many months out of the year to make D in your skin. And that's a whole lot of folks. So you say, well, I eat right, you know, fine. Do you go out in the sun and lie around in, you know, swimsuit? No. Now here's a little review of making cholesterol. 100 years ago, I was a student at University of Minnesota, and I was a TA, and I was supposed to teach a class. So I made cartoons up for my class. And then my advisor wanted my cartoons in her book. So these are actually in a book somewhere in space. But you want to think of HMG-CoA reductase as the guy that makes cholesterol, and it's like an assembly line. And a lot of cholesterol or lowering drugs work by inhibiting that. Now, what is cholesterol? Well, from the front, it looks like chicken wire. From the side, it looks like a lawn chair. And it functions on cell membranes like corrugated cardboard. So you need it for a bunch of stuff. Male and female hormones. This is the female one, and that's the male. They're just basically made out of cholesterol. So myelin, which is the greasy coating on your nerves that helps you send messages, is made out of cholesterol. So another important nutrient that's a problem recently found, and this is not specific to SLOS, but it's like folks in the world, is iodine deficiency. It's the #1 cause of mental retardation around the world. And here's a map. All of those orange places up there have very poor iodine in the soil. And so what we did is we iodized salt, didn't we? And then we said, don't eat salt. So it's a really big deal. They recommend increasing intake, especially in pregnancy. And if you're not using iodized salt, or even if you do, but you don't eat tons of it, taking a multivitamin that has iodine in it is a really good idea. So let's see, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, eat lots of healthy foods, lots of brightly colored fruits and veggies, nuts, legumes, seeds, and whole grains, unprocessed or minimally processed, right? Like that's happening, right? But then mostly olive oil looks like a pretty safe fat to use of cooking fats and that sort of thing. Take a complete type of multivite with minerals, but they're not complete. And for a lot of folks, eating fish or taking fish oil is a really good idea. Many people also need attention to vitamins K, D, and B12, and iodine and magnesium. End of slideshow. Did I make it? Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm wondering what sort of questions you all have for Kathy. Yes, we've got one over here. Are you questioning, or are you going to plug something? I think Marty's got her own story. As soon as she has a mic, we'll
Please
let her
share it
tell it.
with us. I can't see what it is.
Liquid Hope, it's called. And at Baylor, I'm from Houston, they put my daughter Chandler on it just about 4 months ago. It's changed my life completely.
Really? Well, tell us about it.
Well, I don't know how long it's been put out, but
I haven't been working for a couple of years because of the crisis and everything, so I have not used this.
well, I have been blenderizing Chandler's food since about age 2 or 3, because she was on, what was it, Pediasure for the
Oh, yeah.
longest time on a kangaroo pump. But the head of genetics at Texas Children's put me on this blenderized feeding,
Mhm.
and it never changed. And I did it for 33 years,
My God.
every day. I
Yes.
mean, that's a lot. This is, and I'm done.
Sounds good.
So I went from 4 feedings of the blenderized food, which took time, to just 3 feedings of, and down you go. And it's just, I love it. I just love it. We're going to follow up with another visit in a couple of months.
Uh-huh.
She made sure I wasn't, Chandler wasn't, allergic to anything that was in here. So we tried it for 3 or 5 days, and it's completely plant-based, gluten-free, dairy-free,
Does it have
soy-free,
phytochemicals in it or anything? Beta carotene?
corn-free, no added sugar.
We should,
It's 450
Oh, we have.
calories.
we should let the expert take a look and see what she thinks
Yeah, let me
about
bring it
what's in
back
it
if she
and
can.
not only what's not in it. And then we can
Yeah, because.
get an assessment.
Like sure kind of products have a certain amount of stuff, but none of them brightly colored fruits
I
and
just wanted
veggies.
to share.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to learn about it too. Yeah, okay, so ingredients had organic carrots and peas. Okay, there's like food in there. That's a good thing. Whole grain brown rice, vitamin blend, acacia fiber, broccoli, almond butter, kale, pumpkin. Wow. You could be grinding up all that stuff. I don't know how much does it cost.
Yeah, insurance will cover it. It has a special warranty.
Okay, she says insurance will cover this. Wow. Yeah,
When I first started buying Gerber baby food, it was 19 cents a jar,
yeah.
and it was up to 169 for some of
Well,
the
plus it's
meats.
mostly water. You know, they blenderize it in some water and
Meats, and I do 2 veggies, and I do 2 fruits,
yeah.
and plus rice cereal and some other stuff. But it
Well, I'm
was-
really
I
excited
could
to learn about
blenderized in
this.
my sleep, but I just can't wait to feed her now. And I thought that's not gonna be enough for her.
Yeah, and it's
she's
gluten free and dairy free and soy free.
She weighs 112 now, and she's never been over 100 till last year.
Mhm.
Now she's 112, actually almost pudgy here and there.
Well,
And
the
Dr. Porter
key,
said once,
oh,
Marty,
Mother
Chandler's
Time
never
here.
gonna be fat. She's
Um,
getting there, which is good.
Yeah, and the thing is, we
That's
don't
all.
sell anything or anything, but I'm open to suggestion on any kind of product that works really well.
Do you recommend our daughter buy now that take pills? So is there a brand or certain concoction?
Not really. I think that she wants to know if her daughter takes pills, is there a brand or something? None of them are very complete. And I always end up having to do all kinds of monkey business with my patients because the products that are not complete, but the antioxidants are often not in there at all. So I'm out of time, I think, right? Is that what that? What?
One thing about the parent program,
if you switch to, because I do blenderized diets and I've done the packs too, if you switch, you need to be really aware of the lack of cholesterol that you can control in a home blenderized that you cannot control in the packets. So just be aware of that shift that you're going to need to compensate for.
Thank you. Yeah, people in here know all kinds of neat tricks that I do not know. Okay, so I'm just talking about general stuff, but if you have some magical things that worked for you, please share them with everybody. Okay. I think I'm out of time. Is that correct?
You actually have 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
3 minutes and 30 seconds. Hit me.
We have a question
Yeah.
online. It says, at what age can you start adding antioxidants to a formula?
Any age at all.
Any age at all?
Yeah, like it's think about it, like how can you give baby carrots to somebody when they're like 4 months old? Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And as long as you're not adding weirdo products or something, if it's just lots of colorful fruits and veggies are happy.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of the carnitine, CoQ10
Mhm.
and the CoQ10, what forms do those come in? Would be like in a multivitamin? Is it a
It's
liquid?
usually not in a multi. I take carnitine and it's like pills in a powder with the pills, but there's also liquid carnitine and other products like that. Carnitine is something that you make in all of your cells if you make it.
Right.
Okay, and some of us don't make it, some of us just need more. And probably the dietitian at your healthcare facility would know, because they probably use it with like diabetes and some other things like that. It's just our Smith-Lemli-Opitz population is so obscure that they don't have a whole big crop of folks telling you what they do. But something like that that works for any kind of inborn metabolic error is going to be a reasonable starting point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Is that it? I think I used up my 13.4 seconds or whatever.
I think you did. Thank you so much. Really well done.